Hi, I'm Adam Greenfader. I'm here with Rich Holman, chairman of Lifeafar and founder. This is a great day. I'm so excited to have Rich on. Rich, welcome.
Adam, thanks. Good to be here. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you, sir. Are you healthy?
I'm very healthy. 76 on no medications. I'm going to die of loneliness before I die of this virus. So doing great.
Good to hear it. So I know that today we're going to talk a little bit about bringing manufacturing to the United States and your history and experience throughout the world in Colombia and in Puerto Rico recently. I think makes you a prime candidate to talk about this subject. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved in all this.
I came to Medellin in 2006 on vacation, fell in love with the city, decided I needed to buy something before the world got here because it was the world's best kept secret. And Googled Medellin real estate in English and nothing came up. And I said, who's going to take care of the foreigners when they come here? So I started at age 63, not speaking Spanish, not being in real estate, with a company that grew with one part-time employee. In 2007, we've got 110 people now, 4 cities in Colombia. We're in Puerto Rico. We're in Portugal. And that's what's happened. Medellin's been an amazing ride for us.
Tell me a little bit about how you got to Puerto Rico and found Puerto Rico.
Well, I think you know that story quite well because I was at a October conference in Miami, ULI. It was lunchtime. I was going to head back early. But, you know, you've had food at the Ritz. And I think, what was it, chicken lunch or something? But I said, I'm going to stay for lunch. I'm on my iPhone, and I hear this guy babbling up there about something. And I'm suddenly, the more he talks about Puerto Rico, of course, that was you, I'm having deja vu all over again. Everything I'm hearing about what you're saying was, wow, all the news was bad. Nobody really understands. Here's really what's going on. Here's the facts. Here's the truth. And it was the same thing. Great climate, nice people, Latino culture. They love to party, dance, food, families, respect for elders, great climate, just, you know, ticks all the boxes. And of course, phenomenal value, because what Puerto Rico was going through at the time, you could see it was starting to change. They had a pro-business government. They're making some changes. So we committed. And I'll tell you, this is honest to God truth. We've had more help in Puerto Rico in 6 months from the government than we've had in 12 years, 13 years in Colombia. I mean, the people have been very supportive. It's just, we love what's going on there, and we're committed. And we're a hospitality company, and Puerto Rico tourism is turning the corner. They finally done something very smart. They took it out of the government's hands to market the island and brand it. They brought in private people, smart people. Brad Dean, head of the DMO, Carla Campos, head of the Puerto Rico Tourism Board. Phenomenal people, and a testimonial to their great work. 2019 was a record year for Puerto Rico tourism on all fronts. And that's the backstory that people don't see. And of course, for U.S. citizens, it's the best tax advantage. If they move there with Act 2022, 0%, taxes personally and then 4% corporate. I mean, it's an amazing deal. It has brought in some very high-powered people that have helped the island. So you combine that with all the tax advantages of their different investment packages there, whether it's hospitality or movies or energy or whatever field it is. It's just a great 1-2 combination. I mean,
we always hear about the bad of the hurricane and how destroyed Puerto Rico was, et cetera, et cetera. But you were there on the ground, so tell us about it.
Well, one of the positives that I just chuckle because it ties into hospitality business. Most U.S. citizens had no idea where Puerto Rico was. More of them thought it was next to Costa Rica. They didn't know anything. So now they know. With all the news headlines about the hurricane, at least people know where we are.
That number was less than 45% before the hurricane. So it's pretty dramatic.
It was lower than that. Yeah, I agree. And of course, we got this $84 billion federal stimulus package in different forms, which, the next 1 to 3, 4 years, just adds 2 or 3% to the GDP, Puerto Rico. That's a plus. Mm-hmm. But the other one that we got lucky on, the Trump administration passed opportunity zone legislation, which basically means if you invest in capital gains in a project that qualifies in a qualified area, you can defer those gains for 7 years and then come up and have a higher basis. So it's a phenomenal deal. Mm-hmm. And and that could be any capital gain, not just real estate. So, but 98.5% of the island is an opportunity zone. And think about this. You know, some of the best beaches in the Caribbean, rated number 3 in the whole Caribbean is Puerto Rico, are opportunity zone locations. You don't have any of that in the United States. There's no nice beach areas in the States that have that. So,
and you were able to, as you said, to take advantage of the OZ. How was that legislation? How did it work in Puerto Rico?
no, it works. It's very compatible with the federal. And our first project in the old city, Plaza Cologne Hotel and Suites, $15 million deal, $5 million leverage, $10 million capital raise. About half of our investors were rolling capital gains into that. So they're happy campers right now. They paid no capital gains taxes last year. The big one right now today is this COVID-19 pandemic. It may be the catalyst to finally bring our supply chains back to the U.S., namely and most importantly, pharmaceutical and medical supplies. And the leading candidate for this is Puerto Rico. And, you know, I think a little background for the audience. I don't know how familiar they are with Manufacturing Act 936, also called IRC, and Internal Revenue Code 936. Gerald Ford, in the Tax Reform Act of 1976, included this 936 provision as a part of that act. And basically, that act gave tremendous tax advantages and tax incentives for the pharmaceutical industry, you know, to move into Puerto Rico. And they did. I mean, they did in droves. I don't know what the absolute final number of plants there were, but it was enough to create an absolute gravy train for the island. You know, and unfortunately, the government just they didn't have to do anything. You know, they didn't have to develop tourism. They just had so much money flowing in, and the GDP was fine. Everybody's working. Everybody's happy. 1996, President William Dandridge Clinton, in his desire to become a globalist, decided to sign into law the Small Business Job Protection Act and phased out 936 for 10 years to repeal it in 2006. Big Pharma moved off the island. They went to Ireland, India, and China, mostly China. Right. That was the beginning of the downfall for Puerto Rico. You know, that 2006, what the government do, they didn't develop tourism. They decided they'd borrow money. Well, that's fine. You borrow money, then of course they defaulted. So that's the backdrop, you know, for 936. And you know that story as well as I do, and what a position we put ourselves into. If we can bring back 936 to the U.S. and Puerto Rico, or some version thereof, and I like what you said, because it's got to be smartly crafted. And if we can do that, the U.S. wins. We brought back our critical medical and pharmaceutical supply chain back to the U.S. and its territories. Those are rare. Sometimes we get a win-win.
Right.
Very rarely a win-win-win-win.
I think the big concern has always been giving Puerto Rico a bailout. And obviously, I mean, we don't want to give anybody or anything a bailout if it's not necessary. And even if it is, we still don't want to do it. And giving private companies tax incentives to go to Puerto Rico and to manufacture critical drugs, you know, that the U.S. needs to do inside the U.S., I mean, is that considered a bailout?
Anybody that loves China more than Puerto Rico, maybe, but nobody else. And ain't many of those people around right now. And look, let me put it this way. COVID-19 is on track to kill more U.S. citizens. I mean, I've seen estimates between 84,000 to 200,000, but to kill more citizens this year than all the wars, attacks, people who've lost in wars since the Second World War. I mean, you add them all up. That's like this stupid virus. We're in a war with this pandemic. Sure. And we can win this with just a tiny fraction of the money we spend on defense. And you can address this because you know the island better than me, but it's the quickest way to get back into pharmaceutical production because of the plants that are there, the labor pool, the management. And if they're not in the island, they're sitting there waiting in Florida to come back. But you know that better.
Sure. I think Puerto Rico has the infrastructure, it has the cost basis on the labor, and it certainly has the talent. That's definitely a triple threat right there.
More Puerto Ricans live in the United States of America than are on their island of Puerto Rico. There's over 5 million in the States, and only about 3.2 to 3.4 million in Puerto Rico. You know, after that 2006 debacle, when 936 expired, between that then and now, I think Puerto Rico may have lost as much as 20% of their population back to the States. And, you know, because of the loss of those jobs. This is tragic. It's very rare you can see an issue that all politicians and all people would get behind, because 936 coming back and bringing our medical supply chain back to the states and our territory. I mean, think about the support, and any politician who gets behind this. I mean, it's going to be looked on favorably by Democrats, Republicans, Independents, the right, the left, Latino voters, and of course anti-China voters or anti-China sentiment, which is very prevalent right now. So, it's a no-brainer. And I'll think about this. You cannot win the presidency of the United States of America unless you carry Florida. We all know that. And the reason the Puerto Rican voting bloc, interesting enough, has grown in Florida. I think there's 1.1 million plus Puerto Ricans now in Florida. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Adam. And it's like that bloc is starting to rival the Cuban bloc of about 1.35 million, but they're aging. They're dying off. Well, that Puerto Rican voting bloc may and should decide the next election for the president. And whichever camp, Biden or Trump camp, gets behind the reinstatement of 936 would virtually guarantee the win for whichever presidential team, supports this. So, Adam, let me ask you a question. What percent of the Puerto Ricans in Florida would vote for the presidential candidate that supports reinstatement of 936 in their island? What percent?
Oh, it's 100%.
Okay. Look, if the United States is fighting a war with another country, whatever country it is, would we have our factories for manufacturing ammunition and guns and planes and missiles and tanks built in that country of the enemy we're fighting with?
Right.
I don't think so. Well, I don't know, but we're fighting a war. This pandemic is a real war. We now realize it. And where are we manufacturing our most vital medical supplies and pharmaceuticals? China? I mean, is that a friend of ours right now? We've got some phenomenal congressional momentum going on in this. I hope everybody take a note. I don't know who's watching and whose congressmen and senators they can reach, but I know Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas is pushing for some kind of reinstatement. Liz Cheney of Wyoming, Marco Rubio, Florida, Rick Scott, Florida, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, Chuck Grassley, Iowa is on top of this. We can win this thing. We can make this thing happen. We really can, Adam. I'm convinced.
It's extremely hard to argue with. Let's make America safer today. And
you just said something. You said make America safe again. Maybe that's a new slogan instead of great again. Either make America safe again or make America healthy again. And thanks so much for having me on today. I appreciate it. Glad to talk about this subject. It's very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, likewise, Rich. Thank you, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Ciao.
Bye.